wonderful person Glenn was, and how selfless he was, and what a wonderful selfless life he led. Helped a lot of people, helped a lot of pets in distress. It was a passion of his, and really lived a wonderful life. I won't say much more about it. I'll turn it over to Ken in a few minutes to give his thoughts there, but certainly a great loss for the world, really, to have Glenn taken from us so abruptly. What I want to talk about is two things, really, and one is just to announce that we will be making a claim against the MBTA in connection with Glenn's death. From everything we've seen about the incident, Glenn was walking in a crosswalk with a walk sign, and a bus took a left-hand turn and hit him in the crosswalk and then ran him over and killed him. Glenn survived for a relatively short period of time and passed away on Sunday, October 13th. And from what we've seen, the turn that the bus made into the crosswalk with a pedestrian in that crosswalk is a violation of Massachusetts law, and we need to hold the MBTA responsible for that. But the second thing that we'd like to do is we really hope that we can work with the MBTA and we can work with the City of Boston and make this area around the Forest Hills MBTA station safer. I'd encourage everyone to read the letter that residents of Forest Hills, Woodbourne, and Jamaica Plain sent to the MBTA, the Department of Transportation, their state representative, their city councilor, and Mayor Wu, just to address the dangers of this area. It's very clear when you look at the area that over the last number of years, there have been a number of improvements made. There's new housing built, the MBTA station's been refurbished, but what hasn't been done is improvements to the roads. And the neighbors have made it very clear that they view the area as incredibly dangerous. And they've written a passionate letter with some very common sense changes that we think the city could make now at virtually no cost with respect to a lot of them. A couple of the changes that I want to highlight are, if you look at this intersection, when a bus pulling out of the Forest Hills station has a green light and they can turn left, that is the only time that the walk signal is illuminated. So the bus has a green light and there's a walk signal. What the neighbors have proposed, and what we think makes all the sense in the world, is to set it so there's a time when there's a red light at the four-way intersection and the walk signal's illuminated. In our view, that eliminates something like this from happening. Glenn Ingram walks across the crosswalk, the bus has a red light, it never comes into the intersection, and an incident like this is prevented. There are some other things that the neighbors have proposed that also make sense. There are areas apparently with bushes and shrubbery that make vision of intersections more difficult. They've asked that those be removed. Putting temporary flex posts in crosswalks is also something they've proposed, just to make the crosswalks more visible to drivers. Again, the things that we're talking about now, in our view, could be done now and could be done at virtually no cost to the city or the state, whoever makes these changes. So while of course we're here to support the Ingram family, we also stand with the neighbors in Forest Hills. They want these changes made, and on behalf of the Ingram family, so do we. And hopefully those changes can be made quickly, because Glenn Ingram lived a selfless life, and nothing would honor his legacy and his life more than seeing these changes be made and prevent a senseless loss of life in the future. With the way that area is now, we're just afraid this will happen again, but we see changes that can be made to prevent that from happening. So we hope the city will do that. With that, I want to turn it over to Ken Ingram, Glenn's brother, who'd like to say a few things about his brother's life.
Thank you, Tom. First of all, I'd like to add that my son Matt, of course, came with us as well. Tom did mention that he accompanied us on Saturday when we flew in. He had to return to Denver for prior commitments. He couldn't be here today. He wanted to be, but couldn't. Okay, what I'd first like to do, there are a lot of stories out there already, and I'm sure you've seen them. I just want to clear up the timeline quickly, and then I'll talk about Glenn. I first found out about this come on, Kim. Got the first call from Beth Israel on Saturday at it was 1:01 Eastern. Sorry, all my times will be in Eastern. A lot of these were in Mountain Time. I had to convert them. And first call came in at 1:01 Eastern Time, and they indicated it was from social worker there, and she said, "Well, your brother's been in an accident." I said, "Oh." I asked for details, and she said, "I can't give you all the details, but." And at that point, I didn't know it was a pedestrian accident. You know, you're assuming car accident. Then I get some follow-up calls, and finally, I got a consent for surgery at 3 p.m. And they indicated he had a severe head injury, fractured skull, and he was bleeding, hemorrhaging from his brain, and he had some brain swelling. They wanted to remove half of his skull. At 4:43 p.m. Eastern again, I got a call from the neurosurgeon, and he said they removed part of the skull, but it came off in pieces. It was a severe fracture. By this time, we'd already gotten our flights. I'd booked the first nonstop, and Ashley did the same. And Matt hadn't made his yet because we hadn't known the severity of the injury. And as soon as we did, he actually made his reservation on the way to the airport in the Uber. And we arrived at Beth Israel approximately midnight on Saturday night. And from there, you know, we got updates from the neurosurgeon numerous times during the early morning hours of Sunday. And at late morning on Sunday, we made a decision to, at this point he was on a ventilator. He was breathing over it a bit, but not much. And we made the decision to take him off the ventilator. Surgery, as he was an organ donor, we made the decision to wait a bit and keep his organs viable, if they were. Surgery was scheduled for 8 p.m. Sunday night. We left his ICU room. He was rolled into PACU, and a little after 8:30, they pulled the ventilator, and he passed away about 20 minutes later. And from there, he went straight to the OR for his organ donation. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the staff at Beth Israel. They were absolutely incredible. Okay, now on to his life. He moved to JP I think I believe it was 2005, 2004. He had an apartment in on Main Street in JP. Anyone familiar with JP Licks? We spent a lot of time there. I don't know if it still exists. You know, it probably is there. It's a mainstay.
It is.
And so Glenn was trying to find out where he was and what he wanted to do in life, and he decided to open Glenn's Gardening. He was always our mom taught us to be gardeners. I mean, she was a gardener, we were gardeners, but he decided to take it a step further. I'm going to do this as a way of life, and he made a life of it, quite a life. And I've worked for him a couple times. He expanded his business. He took on numerous clientele, and but he didn't want to get too large. His business was a small business. It was a sole proprietorship, and he loved doing it. And he did that up until the day he was hit by the bus. And what was he doing in JP? I worked for him. I know why he was there. I worked for him a couple summers. And he'd ask, "What do you want? What do you want for lunch?" I always grab a slice of pizza, or I grab a sandwich from this convenience store. Well, on this day, you know what he decided to do? Get a sandwich from that convenience store and a drink. And then he made the fateful trip back to his van. And in his van, I forgot to mention this, he had left, and we'll get to his beagles. He's a beagle guy. In his van was his younger pocket beagle, Tari. He had 2 pocket beagles, and I'll get to that. But the fact is, all he was doing, he crossed the street to get his sandwich and drink, which I've done many times with him. I've never done it in the conditions that currently exist, because they've actually finished the Forest Hill station. The housing is up on the corner, but so he built a business. As he got older, he was 63, as you know, he decided it was time to wind the business down. So he he dropped his client list a little bit and was kind of winding down. He wanted to retire. So he loved Maine. He loved the state of Maine. He wanted to live on the farthest island out in the Atlantic you can get. And I always questioned that decision, but he wanted to live year round. What do you do in the winter? So he and I, and this is the last time I saw him alive, in June, we met in Maine, had an Airbnb in Castine, and we were there to look at properties, 2 farmhouses. And it's funny, if you've ever looked at old farmhouses in Maine, Glenn, there's a lot of work here. You're 63, I'm 65. I'd like to help you, but that might not work. So we looked at the 2 farmhouses. We did a lot of talking about life and where he wanted to go, where I was already. And we visited Acadia National Park. One of the photos that was taken in Acadia on a perfectly sunny day. It was supposed to be sunny, they said. With him are his 2 beagles he currently had. They are with a friend now. On the left is Callie Ann. On the left, you're right. On your right as you look at it, his left is Callie Ann. Tari May is on the right, in his right arm. That's the beagle that was in the van that I referred to. He has a long beagle history. He had one of his first beagles, Bentley, was an unusual beagle, very calm. The beagle was actually part of the Friendship Works Pet Pals program, where they go out and visit elderly. On to his next beagle, he adopted a beagle from Rhode Island that was in danger of being put down, so he adopted Gracie. She and Bentley did well, but then along comes 2011. Does anybody remember who Dino was? Dino was the snowplow dog, if you recall. There was a beagle that was injured by a snowplow I believe it was probably 2010, because there was a lot of rehab. And there was a long list of people that wanted to adopt that dog once it was available. Dino is right there in the other pic. That's him in his cone head. Glenn was the one that was chosen to take care of him. His name is now Morgan. They changed his name. He's still alive. He is 14 years old. He wanted that dog so bad. He knew he could do it. He talked to them and said, "I can do the rehab." He was, Dino was not done, or Morgan was not done with rehab, and he rehabbed him back. And he walks. He has some medical issues, shots for that hip that was destroyed, and there you'll find the story out there. And he brought him back with help from a friend. And then we get to the two pocket beagles. He adopted Callie Ann from I'm not sure the year. Callie Ann is 9 at this point, and Tari May. Glenn was passionate about JP. He had many friends. His gardening business took him. Everybody knew him. It was, he walks into the convenience store, they know Glenn. I was there last night. I asked the guy at the counter. I said, "Were you here Saturday?" He said, "You know what he said?" "Yes, the day that I didn't say anything." He said, "Yes, the day the pedestrian was hit." And I told him I'm his brother, and we had a little bit of a talk. And he knows everybody on that little section of JP across from the transfer station. He's been a great friend, a great brother. I miss him dearly. I just don't want this death to be for naught. Sometimes I feel it takes a death to effect change in this society. And I think if anything comes from that, Tom went over it. This intersection, I've walked it. I want you to go down there and walk that. You walk the northern crosswalk from Tower Street across to the transfer station, and then walk back across it. Glenn was headed back toward the Tower station, or the transfer station, as his van was parked on that side of the street. I want you to do it. I've done it. I see the dangers walking across there. I watch those buses come right up to me. It's a very narrow intersection. I just don't want this to be for nothing. I thank you all for being here and listening to me. And I think I'll close it out there. I'll pass it back to you, Tom.
Yeah, Thank you, Ken. And we can take questions now, and if there are questions about Glenn and his life, the family's happy to answer those. If there are questions about our plans on what to do moving forward, I would take those.
Did the bus driver not see him? Can you go through that again with us? Like, how did this happen?
Well, what we know at this point is that certainly from what we've been told, he was in a crosswalk and he was hit. I can't really speak to what the bus driver saw. I've not talked to the bus driver, so I don't know what caused the bus driver to do that, but we just know the story of what happened.
We don't know if it's reckless driving, design, or all of the above.
Well, I think that regardless of the way an intersection's laid out, a driver still needs to yield to pedestrians in a crosswalk. That's Massachusetts law. It doesn't change based on the danger that might be presented by an intersection. So we don't know what the driver saw, but the law doesn't change.
So how do you want to hold the MBTA accountable here? What kind of legal action are you seeking?
Well, it would be a wrongful death lawsuit against the MBTA, where we just seek to prove that the driver was at fault and that the MBTA was at fault for hitting Glenn while he was in a crosswalk.
Mr. Ingram, do you blame the bus driver? Would you like to see some accountability for that bus driver?
Well, that's case related some, so I would take that, and I think the family's just grieving a lot right now, and every driver has an obligation to be safe, and if the driver's not driving safely, then that driver is likely at fault for what they cause. And that's what it looked like to us. It's an issue of personal blame isn't something that I think really matters at this point.
Well, Mr. Ingram, what questions do you have to this bus driver about what happened?
I have none at this point. I will wait for the results of the investigation. I understand what needs to be done, and I'm not gonna blame him. I can't. I don't know the circumstances behind the incident. Yes, I know the bus hit my brother, but I can't comment on. I feel no animosity right now. I don't doubt I will. I mean, the investigation will detail what occurred.
But you hope it affects change.
Yeah, I think
I
we
hope
just
the incident affects change.
want some answers, just to figure out what happened on our end, so we can, move past this as well. But just for something to change, it's a
Exactly.
scary intersection.
Yeah.
Did Glenn ever talk about how scary that intersection was?
He did not.
Yeah. But did you experienced it before he passed away? What were your thoughts on it before this even happened?
I had not experienced it before he passed away. I did it the last few
Oh,
days.
after.
Since we flew in on Sunday or Saturday, he passed away on Sunday. We've been here trying to close things up. We've got a business to deal with.
Yeah.
Yes, I've walked the intersection, but after his death.
And what were your impressions of the safety there at that intersection as you walked through it?
She watched me walk across 2 nights ago, coming back the opposite way he was going. And, the buses are too close to you.
They
I mean,
just
the
inch.
intersection is too tight. The bus shouldn't have been in the intersection. It should be a all stop crosswalk crossing. That's my feeling. And I see this letter and it's like, everybody says this. And why did it take Glenn's death to have this come to the forefront again? It just should have been corrected before his death, but it wasn't. So this better wake up some people that need to make the decisions to change that intersection.
Ken, so when you were there, did you notice that the light was on for pedestrians to cross when you were crossing and the buses were still coming?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
If a pedestrian's crossing, you can maybe get one bus through, depending on how slow they're walking, one bus through that light. And when there's no pedestrians or someone goes across on a bike, they try and get 3 buses through that light. And the last one always runs the red light. It's scary. And we saw a gal walking across that the buses just inch. You're walking and they're slowly getting closer and closer to the pedestrians. It's terrifying.
Did you notice whether or not some of them make tighter turns than others? Because we were there, some of us were there that Saturday, and did you notice the way the buses were turning?
No, not being CDL drivers, we're not going to comment on that because there's a radius. I know my dad was a truck driver. There's a radius that you have to account for on your vehicle, and buses have a long radius.
And in our view, multiple things can be true, just in that they do have a difficult job turning in that intersection.
Exactly.
But at the same time, they need to make sure the crosswalk is clear before they do it.
Have you all seen any photos of the angle that the bus took?
Yes.
Is
I
it-
saw the only photo I saw was an online photo, and I know where the bus was setting as it turned.
And what did you make of it?
Again, I'm not a CDL driver. He was probably making the correct turn. I mean, he wasn't off. It's just the fact that Glenn was in the crosswalk. The fact that the bus was where it was is probably where it was supposed to be. If Glenn hadn't been there, it's in the correct spot. So that's all I can say. I mean, I'm not that's what the accident investigation is for.
Is there surveillance video that you've been able to see or that the MBTA may have?
That we've been able to see, no. We believe that all MBTA buses have front-facing cameras, and there should be camera footage that would show it. It's also in a very busy area. Forest Hills is the last orange line stop going south. You would think there are cameras outside of that building. There are a lot of other businesses in the area that may have cameras as well. So, and we're trying to get those things. I believe there is footage that will show this, but have we seen it at this point? No.
Okay, but you're not sure it's even out there, but you're hoping that it's out there.
Well, there's supposed to be a front-facing camera on an MBTA bus, so either the MBTA violated its own rules, or we'll get that camera footage.
And you've asked the MBTA for that video?
We have.
And what was their response?
There's been no response at this point, but the MBTA likely doesn't even have it yet. We sent a letter to them and asked them for all video that they have, but this is all so recent that the MBTA may not have even seen that letter at this point.
And if they violated those rules, how would that factor into your wrongful death lawsuit?
If they violated the rules in terms of
And
cameras,
do they have the video? Yeah.
well, I guess I'd have to think about how it factors into the wrongful death lawsuit. As a member of the community, if the MBTA is supposed to have a front-facing camera and didn't, that would be problematic for me. It's something that people would want to know about, but I don't know anything about that question at this point. We're not making that allegation at this point.
We've been covering a lot of safety issues with the MBTA overall. Do you think this speaks to a greater problem about its focus and commitment to safety?
I've heard about a lot of incidents with the MBTA as well. The MBTA is an extremely large organization, a lot of buses, a lot of trains, a lot of properties. Anytime you hear about something preventable, though, and this seems very preventable, yes, that does give you a safety concern, and that's really what we're looking at now is was this preventable, and how do we prevent it from happening to somebody in the future? And that's what we hope some of the changes that we're proposing will address. And are there changes that need to be made in terms of how buses are allowed to exit the Forest Hills station that will go directly to the MBTA? There may be. We may need those changes too. So we want to see any changes that could prevent something like this from happening.
Are those traffic signals the City of Boston responsibility, or is that part of the T property?
Well, they're on a public way in the City of Boston. It would be a bit of speculation at this point. They're likely City of Boston signals because they are on a public way within the city, but it also involves exiting an MBTA property. So is there some kind of joint control between the two of them? I just don't know.
But right now the lawsuit's just about the MBTA.
The lawsuit that we're contemplating and preparing is just the MBTA. We have no thought of a lawsuit against the City of Boston at this point.
I haven't looked down there. Was there any kind of a yield sign that says to vehicles, to buses, you have to yield to pedestrians in this crosswalk?
Well, I don't. As you
see
exit from the Forest Hills station, I've not seen a sign like that. I mean, Mass General Law, Chapter 89, Section 11 says that you need to yield to pedestrians in crosswalks while turning. So there's a mass general law that says it. Is there a specific sign? I don't know. And the only people that would see that sign, if there was one, are MBTA bus drivers leaving because they're leaving from the T property.
Because it's a common configuration in Boston to have that sort of double thing going on, and you have to yield to it's a traffic move along kind of thing.
Well, and to your point, any additional signage, even if it is already the law, any additional signage that says yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk, we'd certainly support something like that.
Ken, more than anything else, what would you like the public to know about your brother?
He was a kind, caring, compassionate soul, a loving brother, a loving uncle. He cared for the community. He felt his place was here in JP. He fit into the JP community like hand in a glove. And I saw it every time I came here. Oh, let's go here. Let's go there, you know, and it was always in JP.
And he's originally from Denver as well.
No, I didn't cover that. We were originally from upstate New York, outside of Albany.
Okay. And he made his way to Boston.
He did.
Those years ago.
Yeah, he went to school at SUNY Albany. He had a master's in history. And then he kind of, well, what am I going to do with my history degree? He taught for a little bit, and then he decided he might want to be an architect, so he came over here and went to architectural school. Kind of said, nah, that's not it, and ended up in Glenn's Gardening. And I should add, if you're going to print anything, do not print it was a landscaping business, because he will come for you.
Would you describe him as kind of a free spirit?
Yes.
How long was Glenn's gardening in business? When you found it?
It was, I'd have to go back, and I think it was like 2005 or 6, 7. I can get back to you on that because I got to go through all those records.
That's okay, mid-2000s? Okay.
Right.
Thank you. About 20 years.
Yeah, 20 years,
Yeah.
grew a client base, and he actually, he had his van, he had a couple vans. He had the magnetic sign on the side. He told me, I'm taking that sign off, and I said, why? Everybody's calling.
Yeah.
I can't keep up with this. And he didn't want to grow the business too large because he'd lose control of quality.
Was it a one-man
No,
company?
he had, his employee population would fluctuate from year to year, but currently he had 2 because he was trying to wind the business down. He's had upwards of 6 and 7. He talked me into coming out here. And we actually, the other day, after breakfast, we went to a couple of the locations I work so I could show Ashley where I'd done work for him.
So did he have 3 dogs?
Currently,
Yeah.
he has 2. He has the 2 pocket beagles, Callie-Ann and Tari,
That helped,
Tari May.
but got
This
DL.
dog,
Yeah, Morgan is, he has a good friend who
Okay.
kind of took over has custody. You know, they were friends, and
And can you spell the dog's name?
I'm sorry?
Spell the dog's name.
Callie-Ann, Callie, and then Tari May, Tarie, and May, M-A-E.
Did you say
Sorry,
those
man.
dogs were his kids?
oh my gosh, yes.
Love of his life.
My dog is my kid, and him and I would send photos back and forth all the time of just silly things they were doing. He loved those dogs more than anything, and he could bring them to work, which was even better.
Which he did. He took Tari, and
The amount of dog beds in that in his van.
Sorry, can you spell his names again, just a little bit slower?
Yeah, Tari, Tarie, May, M-A-E, and then Callie is Callie, and Ann, just A-N.
I don't think there's an E on that, but they are both pedigree. He's got their tree hanging in his office for each dog.
Sweet baby
They
angels.
both came from the same breeder.
Anything else that we can answer for you, or questions for the family or for me?
That letter had like 6 600 signatures on it. Obviously, a lot of people calling for change. Do you know how long calls for change date back to preceding this incident? How many years or months that people have been asking to see?
I don't know how long it preceded the incident, but there is certainly a lot of interest in it now in the community, and the fact that it's gotten hundreds of signatures in just a few days speaks to how strongly the community feels.
Did you provide a copy of that letter, or?
The letter from the community?
Yeah.
I have a copy here if you'd like one.
Yeah,
Oh,
we,
you know why? Because when you go
we
to,
can't get it.
you, you click on the link and they shut it down, because I think the responses were overwhelming. So if you have it, we'd love a copy of it.
Crash the
Let's-
server, huh?
Let's sell them to
We
you.
can get them.
I have like 5 of them there.
I'll
You
go
just,
see if I
just
can-
run it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, sure.
Do you know the name of the convenience store that he would get the sandwich?
It's the southeast corner of Tower in Washington. I don't know the name of it. It's,
I think it's just.
It doesn't
for
come to
sales
mind for me either, but
convenience,
it
yeah.
has a blue awning and it's right on the corner. You can see it if you
Okay,
go on it.
thank you.
Yeah.
and the pizza place that we used to frequent's just north of Tower. I mean,
Anything else that we can answer for you? Questions?
Yeah, you said you're contemplating the lawsuit. Do you know when you would expect to file it?
Yeah, so a lawsuit against the MBTA is governed by Mass General Law, Chapter 258, and part of that is that you need to send them a presentment letter where you lay out basically the case, and you have to give the MBTA 6 months to respond. We'll send the letter very shortly, but we can't file the lawsuit less than 6 months from now, so we'll have to wait that time.
Very sorry for your loss.
thank you.
Thank you for talking
I want
to us.
I want to thank you all for the opportunity to get this out. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, the family's very appreciative of everyone coming to talk to them, so thank you.
Which dog was in the van?
On his right hand.
So this one?
Yeah, the one closest to
And
you.
that's-
That's
Sorry,
Tari.
man.
Tari's on the left and Callahan's on the right.
In the photo.
And that was taken just a short moment ago?
That was taken a Saturday after Father's Day this year because I visited my dad in New York, came over here, met him in Castine at the Airbnb, and we went to Acadia that Saturday because it was supposed to be sunny. We ate in Bar Harbor. He loves Bar Harbor.
And if you
He
guys-
loved Maine. I thought it was a little damn.
If you guys want to use these pictures, I think Lindsay sent digital copies too of
Yeah,
those.
she did, yeah, she
photos.
did, yes. We can just use them without credit
Yeah,
or.
sure.
we can just use them.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
She should be right back in with the copies of that letter.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm very sorry.
Thank you so much. Thought I was gonna lose it there.
I'm amazed you're here.
Nobody would have faulted you if you didn't.
Yeah.
It just tells us how much he meant to.
Okay. Sorry for your loss. Yeah, we were there that night. We were at the store for several hours.
Appreciate it.
As we all